Have you ever heard of the Incan Empire? A civilization that stretched for thousands of miles, built incredible cities like Machu Picchu, and managed a complex society of millions all without a single written word, or so we thought. For centuries, historians and archaeologists have been puzzled by these mysterious objects, the quipus. At first glance, they look like simple collections of knotted strings, maybe a primitive form of a calculator or an abacus. The official story was that they were just accounting tools, used to track llamas, corn, and taxes. But what if that story is completely wrong? What if these aren't just strings but a lost language, a tactile form of writing that we're only now beginning to understand? Today, we're diving deep into one of history's greatest enigmas. We're going to unravel the secrets of the quipus and challenge everything you thought you knew about writing, language, and the incredible ingenuity of the Inca. This isn't just about knots and strings. It's about a three-dimensional code, a physical computer that held the history, laws, and stories of an entire empire within its fibers. For the longest time, the academic consensus was pretty straightforward. The Spanish conquistadors, who arrived in the 16th century, saw the Inca using quipus and described them as devices for keeping accounts. They saw Inca officials called quipucameocs reading the strings to report on warehouse inventories and census data. Based on these accounts, scholars concluded that the quipus were a mnemonic device, a tool for jogging the memory of the record keepers, but not a true writing system capable of recording narrative or abstract ideas. The knots seem to represent numbers in a base 10 system, which is clever, but it's a far cry from a language. This view held for hundreds of years. The quipus were relegated to the category of proto-writing, an interesting but ultimately limited system. It seemed the Inca were a historical anomaly, a major empire that thrived without a true written language. But a few modern researchers started to ask a critical question. What if we've been looking at them all wrong? What if the Spanish, in their haste to conquer and convert, missed the true complexity of what they were seeing? What if the numbers were just one layer of a much more sophisticated system? This is where the story gets exciting. A new generation of scholars, using modern technology and a fresh perspective, began to re-examine the surviving quipus. There are only about 800 left in museums around the world. They noticed things that had been overlooked for centuries. It wasn't just about the knots and their position, which indicated numerical value. It was about the construction of the quipu itself. They looked closer at the strings, at the very fibers they were made from. They analyzed the color of the strings. The material, was it cotton or alpaca wool? And most importantly, the way the strings were twisted. This is where we get into the binary code. Just like a computer uses zeros and ones, the Inca seem to have used a binary system encoded directly into the strings. A string could be spun in one of two ways, either clockwise, which we call an S-twist, because the fibers align like the middle of the letter S, or counterclockwise, a Z-twist. This simple choice S or Z creates a binary distinction. But it doesn't stop there. The strings themselves were often plied together from smaller threads. So you could have two S-twisted threads plied together in a Z-twist, or two Z-twisted threads plied together in an S-twist. The combinations multiply, creating a rich set of possibilities for encoding information before a single knot was even tied. Think about it. We have color, fiber type, twist direction, and ply direction. Suddenly, the quipu transforms from a simple string of numbers into a multi-layered information storage device. The researchers realized that these elements were likely not random or decorative. They were deliberate choices, each one carrying a piece of information. They were looking at a system of syntax, a grammar built not with letters on a page, but with the physical properties of the object itself. One of the leading figures in this research is Manny Medrano, a Harvard undergraduate who made a groundbreaking discovery. He was analyzing a set of 6 quipus from a specific region in coastal Peru. He noticed that the way the strings were attached to the main cord and the colors used seemed to correspond to the social hierarchy of the local villages mentioned in a Spanish census document from the same period. He found that the quipus were not just recording numbers. They were recording relationships between people and groups. The structure of the quipu mirrored the structure of the society it was describing. This was a massive breakthrough. It suggested that quipus weren't just for accounting. They could encode non-numerical, narrative information. The term that's being used now is semantic. The physical choices in making the quipu carry meaning. For example, a string made of alpaca wool might signify something of high status, while a cotton string could mean something more common. The color could represent a specific commodity, a person, a place, or even an abstract idea. A red string might mean war, while a white string could mean peace. But the true mind-bending discovery is the binary aspect. Let's get back to the twists and plies. By combining the S and Z twists at different levels of the chord's construction, the Quipu could create 24 different string types. If you pair that with different colors, the number of unique combinations explodes. This is a system far more complex than needed for simple bookkeeping. Researchers now believe they've found what they call Quipu boards, which might have been used to create these complex strings. These boards would have allowed the makers to systematically combine different threads and twists, essentially programming the information into the string itself before it was added to the final quipu. This is where the analogy of a tactile computer comes in. The Inca were using a physical, three-dimensional system to store and process complex data. They didn't need a screen or a keyboard. The information was literally in their hands. They could feel the difference between an S twist and a Z twist, read the colors, and understand the meaning locked within the knots. So what kind of information were they recording? We're still in the process of decoding it, but the possibilities are incredible. Instead of just 500 bushels of corn, a quipu might be saying, 500 bushels of corn were delivered from the highland village of X as tribute to the regional governor Y during the Festival of the Sun. The knots provide the number, but the color, fiber, and twist of the string provide the context, the who, what, where, and why. They could have been recording history, genealogies, laws, myths, and poetry. An entire library of a civilization's knowledge, culture, and memory, all woven into string. Think about the implications. If we can crack this code, we could unlock a direct voice from the Incan past, unmediated by the Spanish conquerors. For centuries, our understanding of the Inca has been filtered through the lens of those who destroyed their empire. The quipus offer a chance to hear the Inca story in their own words. We could read their histories, understand their philosophy, and learn about their daily lives from their own perspective. It would be like discovering the Rosetta Stone for an entire continent. The challenge is immense. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, we don't have a direct translation key. We do have a document that says, this type of knot on a red string means this. Instead, researchers are using a method called pattern matching. They look for statistical regularities across the hundreds of surviving quipus. Are certain color combinations more common? Do certain knot types always appear on Z-twisted chords? They compare these patterns to what we know from archaeological evidence and the few colonial documents that describe quipus. It's a painstaking process, like trying to learn a language with no teacher and no dictionary, just a handful of books you can't yet read. But every small discovery, every pattern that emerges from the data, brings us one step closer. The work of scholars like Madrano, the late Gary Urton, and others is slowly peeling back the layers of this ancient code. They are using computational analysis and 3D imaging to map every single knot, twist, and fiber of the surviving quipus, creating a massive digital database to search for these hidden patterns. This quest to decode the quipus is more than just an academic exercise. It's a fundamental re-evaluation of what we consider to be writing and civilization. It challenges our text-centric view of the world and shows us that there are other ways of storing and transmitting complex knowledge. The Inca found a way that was tactile, three-dimensional, and deeply integrated with the materials of their environment. They didn't write on paper. They wrote with the world around them. The story of the quipus is a testament to human ingenuity and a powerful reminder that history is full of secrets still waiting to be discovered. What we once dismissed as a primitive accounting tool is now revealing itself to be one of the most unique and sophisticated communication systems ever invented. We stand on the verge of hearing an ancient empire speak for the first time in 500 years. The knots are being untied, the code is being cracked, and a lost chapter of human history is about to be read. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. What do you think the quipus will reveal? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.